friends, how's everyone doing? I am sitting down to film 2 videos today, so I have my water here. Isn't this so cute? It's glass, it's a tumbler, and then it's got like this bamboo lid, and then the straw is really secure in there. This is so freaking cute, and I've been using it a ton since I got it earlier this week. I will put a link to the shop below where I got it. It was a pre-order though, but you might still be able to get it since I have 2 videos to film today. My throat gets kind of dry after I've been talking for a while, so I made sure I brought my water in. Okay. Woo. First, I'd like to say, if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel and watching the video. I love to share about the romance novels that I read here on my channel. Come hang out here with us regularly. I also have a private Facebook group, which I always put the link to, and the rest of my social media in the description box below. Okay, let's get started because it's one of my favorite authors today. The book we're going to talk about today is Until Levi by KL Shandwick. Until Levi, yay! I was so excited to read this book. I had been very interested in Levi since we met him in the first book in this series. This is the second book. The first book, Until Jude, I did a video on. I will of course include that in the description box below. KL Shandwick, or Kelly Shandwick, she writes under Kelly as well, is one of my very favorites. She writes characters literally like no one else does. And I was like, okay, she really set the bar with Until Jude. I loved him. And their story, Esther and Jude's story, was very unexpected. Really different. I hadn't read anything like that before from her or anybody else. Love that. And so I wasn't sure what to expect with Levi, but let me tell you, it was nothing even what I did expect, it wasn't anywhere near that. His story was so different than what I kind of conjured up in my head, and I love that. Until Levi is a Rockstar romance. The whole series is Rockstar, obviously. The band is the Screaming Shadows, I believe. I do believe there's going to be 2 more books after this one. Levi is the lead singer, Jude is the drummer. We knew in Until Jude that Jude and Levi are super close. And keep in mind, you might get spoilers about Until Jude in this video about Until Levi, because of course I can't help that, but just keep that in mind. So we know how close they are, and that Jude is now with Levi's younger sister, Esther. I loved how much we got of them in this book. I always love, when authors bring those characters forward, when it's book 3 or 4 in the series, and we still are hearing a lot about the characters from 1 and 2, my favorite. So I loved all that we got about Esther and Jude in Levi's book. But that being said, we know that there's drama, how Esther and Levi came into each other's lives. They are half brother and sister. And so we know that Levi is struggling with a lot. At the beginning of the book, he has recently come out of rehab. At the end of Until Jude, he is going in. We know he has struggles. That's why he was in rehab. We know he has issues with relationships. We know that he's carrying a lot on him. And I was so interested to see where KL was going to take his story. Right away in the book, Levi is walking down the beach. The book takes place, they do tour during the book, but Levi's home base is in Florida. He's actually in Key Largo, which I've never been to, so I loved hearing that. But he's walking down the beach, super picturesque, kind of just like in himself. And somebody, he walks by and someone's like, hey, so you can't say hello to me? You're a big rock star? I'm paraphrasing, but he turns and it turns out that it's somebody that he knew from high school, and her name is Trini. Immediately he's like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? And they hit it off, they start talking, and Levi's like, whoa, like, she's all grown up. I loved Trini. Oh my gosh, did I love her. She is sweet, she is kind, she's sassy. But her sass is not like bitchy sass. It's like sweet woman sass, if that makes any sense. She is a successful, single, divorced mom, and they're neighbors. They decide to strike up a friendship, and I thought it was interesting the way Levi kind of thought about her. You know, in Trini's perspective, he was, you know, like somebody she was like, you know, had a crush on in high school. And, you know, he was like who he became as a rock star, like living this rock star life. Oh my God, right? And it's like a dude you went to high school with, you know? And then there's Levi and the way he thinks about her. And he's like, she's a tie to a time in my life where I was just Levi. Yeah, I was trying to make something. I had Jude. We were trying to, like, you know, make this band, and now we're successful, and everything that Levi Mulligan is in his life now as a 30-something. And yet here's Trini, who's known him and can take him back down, kind of like off that pedestal, because he doesn't like to want to be there. Here's Trini, who like evens the playing field with him a little bit because she knows the Levi from back then. I really understood that, and I understood that not only was there physical appeal between the two of them, but there was this grounding that Trini brought to Levi, and I really liked that. Trini is so likable. I just adored her, and this is what Levi says about her. It had been a long time since I felt an instant attraction to a woman that wasn't just purely sexual. Trini was stunning, witty, and wonderfully uncomplicated blast from the past. She was a connection to the old me, and from the moment she began to talk, I felt a familiar bond with her. Even though we hadn't conversed at high school, I felt as if I'd known her closely for the years, and I liked the buzz I got from the chemistry between us. They have chemistry right off the bat, but she's newly divorced. She's like, and that's a rock star, and I am not touching that, but hey, let's be friends. And Levi is like, oh my God, oh, hello, everything that he just said here. And yet he's like, I just need to like keep on my path of figuring my stuff out. And yet this could be a really great friendship. Yeah, I totally want to have sex with her, but I should do the right thing for myself right now, which is just be friends. Something I really loved about this book in particular is that we got a little bit more about their rock star lives. And I think maybe because it was about Levi, who is the front man to the band, I really like this part because it's so something that I don't know because I'm not a singer at all. But I really liked hearing Levi talk about singing. And one of the songs he mentioned is like one of my favorite songs, like ever. This is what he says. Yeah, what's your pleasure? Deacon asked as he linked his fingers and flexed his arms in front of his guitar. I grinned at the support I felt coming from them, and I felt thankful they weren't skirting around me like I was a delicate soul. I've been keeping my vocals in good shape since the last time you saw me. It was rehab, Deacon, not a vow of silence. Jude and Greg simultaneously played a few beats, and although they weren't the same, they complemented each other. Deacon, Corey, and I laughed loudly. Not wishing to keep them waiting any longer, I jogged over to the mic and tapped it twice to test it out. Corey began to play the intro to Dancing on My Own, the slower paced cover from Callum Scott of the Robin original. Like, that makes me cry. That song makes me cry. I found it great for breathing control, raising my soft palate, and opening my voice. My choice of song lent itself to a gradual slide in my vocal range from my stomach to my chest voice without straining my vocal cords. Plus, ever since I'd heard the lyrics, I'd had an instant emotional connection with the song. It was one of those tunes I used in band rehearsals for warming all of us up before we got down to our own music. There's just something really cool about that. And it was just like, oh, okay. It showed me how serious Levi was about being back in the band and with the guys. After everything that he had been through and where he was in his life, kind of starting over and like really trying to do the work on himself, to know that the guys were right there with him, supporting him, was just wonderful. I mean, of course they were, because Jude's awesome. And we're going to meet Corey and we're going to meet Deacon more other books after this. But you know what I'm saying? I loved how it showed their camaraderie. I assumed certain characters were going to be main characters in this book. And that's totally not what happens. And I love that I was surprised about that. I was surprised at the things that came up in his story. I just, like, they came out of left field for me, but in a way that the way she peeled back his layers and the work that he was trying to do on himself, we know he has struggles. But oh my God, I had no idea there was that. It just spoke to us getting to know Levi on such a deep level, what brought him to be on the destructive paths that he had been on, how he was in relationships with women, how he treated people in his life. Levi had a journey to go on in this book, and although it was not easy at all, Kelly takes us through it in her books. As a fan of hers, the way his journey went was so fitting and so organic to her as a writer and him as a character. I was so invested in Levi. And then there's this whole love story part that is making me swoon, and then it's a whole other layer to him that we're getting to know. Yeah, I mean, I knew that I liked him. I knew I was interested about him, but Jude left really big shoes to fill, and let me tell you, Levi filled them and is right there next to Jude. One of the things I really like about the way Kelly writes is her characters are adults. And the way she writes them, even if they're going through horrible things and they want to work on themselves, the maturity in the characters. And if they aren't mature at the start, they're going to be mature in how they handle things, in their outlook in life, and like by the end of the book. In this book, Trini and Levi are both adults coming into a relationship in their 30s. Like, that's very different than a book with where the characters are 22 years old. I really connect to her characters because of this. And to me, there's so much more sexy to a relationship when the characters are a little bit older, and maybe it's my age, maybe I'm an old lady, and that's fine. This is a really tender and sweet and swoony moment between Trini and Levi. It's from Levi's perspective. Her gorgeous eyes pinned me in a serious stare as emotion swarms within her gaze, and I felt something shift in my chest. My heart swelled, its beat hard but steady as I stared back, transfixed with equal intensity. She must have felt a shift too, because tears sprang to her eyes. I kissed them away, murmuring reassuring words, and cradled her head in my hands. That moment felt intense, precious, and I believed I'd made a lasting memory that would stay with me. The best part about that scene is, and it's a sexy time scene, is right after the finish of that. I don't know if it's in the next chapter or just later. We do get dual perspective in this book. We get Trini's perspective, and we get that from her perspective, that scene from her perspective. Oh my gosh. Oh, I loved it. There is the most quintessential Rockstar moment in this book. Levi talks about singing, and I had to look up the song because I didn't know the song. I never watched the show Nashville. He talks about singing this song and that he heard it originally from the Nashville cast. I didn't watch Nashville because it was on ABC the same time Chicago Fire was on NBC, back when Chicago Fire started, when it was just Chicago Fire. And of course, I have to support my family. So I never watched Nashville because we were always watching Chicago Fire. That being said, I hadn't heard this song before. This is from Levi's perspective, and it was like the perfect quintessential Rockstar moment. The song is When the Right One Comes Along. So look it up. It's very sweet. I'd expected a mixed reaction to my declaration of being in a new relationship, but the tsunami of love that came back at me from the audience almost choked me. For a minute, my throat closed from the wave of emotion that had risen inside. In that moment, Deacon was so attuned to my mood that he played the intro again. When I began to sing When the Right One Comes Along from the series, I delivered it in the same understated way Sam Palladio, who played Gunnar Scott, did in the show. The fans immediately connected with the song by holding up their cell phones in the dark arena. I glanced over the faces beneath me as most of our fans sang along. During the ballad, I'd wish that Trini could have been with me to witness such an incredible moment. What our fans saw wasn't Levi Milligan. Oh, I said Mulligan before. Sorry about that. Levi Milligan, the front man from Screaming Shadows right then. It was me sharing my private feelings for her with them. Of all the cover songs I'd ever sung in all the cities of the world, I had never sung truer words that connected with my feelings for her. Right as I reached the last bridge of the song, Deacon wandered over, still playing his guitar, and nudged me on the shoulder. He nodded towards the side of the stage. I almost dropped to my knees when I saw Trini with tears in her eyes, but smiling as she stared back at me. Shock sent a thrill of electricity down my spine. At the same time, my heart almost burst out of my chest with the love I felt for her. Oh my God. I mean, stop it right there, Levi. I mean, it was like perfect, right? Haven't we all thought about that? When we like look at a famous rock star and we're like, oh my God, do you sing to your girlfriend and your wives? Of course they do, and it's moments just like that. Right when I thought I was like, okay, great, awesome, here's our happily ever after, this is awesome, I love it, Kelly throws this freaking curveball in there, and you're like, uh-oh, like, is this gonna derail him? Like, is this the last thing that he doesn't need that like breaks the camel's back? But it actually ended up really unlocking this whole new level in his heart. He handled it wonderfully. I loved that she surprised us with this other layer and thing. And you know what? It was this whole new part to Levi's life that like made his life even more complete. It was all good for me. Let me know if you have read Until Levi or Until Jude or any of Kelly's other books. You know I always love to hear. And if you haven't, no worries. Put them on your TBR, but then leave me a comment below what you are reading. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you very soon. Bye.